Share the screen. So today we were talking about the authentication and authorization, which is ensure the appropriate access for the appropriate people. And this basically is the last component you need to build into your application to make your application being production ready, because you always want to make sure your application is being like protected properly. So this is a very important concept if you want to get your applications being deployed to the production. And I'm not sure whether you guys noticed that or not, or been like have this distinguish between these two concepts. Actually, the authentication and authorization, they are two different concepts. So today's like structure of the content will be like this. We were talking about the concepts, and then we're talking about how the GWT works. GWT is one of the most kind of widespread used like a front end and back end authentication protocol. So we will explain how it works. And then because we have the Django, we have the Azure, and we also have the front end, and we have a Python package, then we need to ensure the connections between all of them to be secure. Then how can we practice these GWT ways to do the authentication between all the components so you can know how to implement in your code? And then we can do some further discussions about the authentications and authorizations like in the future, what it will be looks like. And we will try to do a demo. Today's demo will be a bit more complex. Hopefully we can get it works smoothly. So first is about the concepts. One is authentication and one is authorization. The distinction between them two, one is trying to verify who you are, another is trying to determine what you can do. So verify who you are, basically you can show your ID to verify, okay, you are the guy who should have the permission to access this airport or something. So normally it we're using the username or password. Or for example, in the wood side, they use the biometric, for example, your hand, and they scan it and verifies you, or use your fingerprint to get your authenticated, which is being used by the like a MacBook Pro and also Face ID. So these are all the ways doing the authentication. But for the authorization, that's a totally different concept, actually. So within large enterprise applications or the like applications within a organization or between different roles of the people, then you need to determine what you can do. For example, if you are the like a lecturer of the unit, the LMS should give you a page, allow you to edit the lecture content. But if you are the student of a unit, then the application should only allows you to see and view all of the content of this unit. They shouldn't be allowed to do any edit of the information in the unit. Similar situation is like the hotel cards. Like the admin people can disable or enable a card access to a specific room, but as the hotel's user or the who use this room, they should use this like a specific card only access a specific room. So the typical ways to implement this, there are three and actually more. These three are three typical ways to implement it. One is role-based like implementation. So basically, you can in your business, you can model how many different roles you are needed. Then you have a user concept in your whole application. Then you can apply, like for a specific user, you can assign different role to the user. For example, in our context of the like lecture examples, you basically have two roles. One is a student, one is a lecturer. So in the system design, you should have two roles. And based on the user's role, you will give them different permissions, whether they can access this specific page or not, or do this specific update operation or not. So that's role-based way. Permission-based way is actually what Django building have. So permission-based ways is like, for example, we want to allow the user A can access and update it, the specific tables, specific column. So this permission is being divided very granularly. And you can assign a user with a lot of different specific ways to do the role permission. I think I can give a very quick demonstration about how you actually do that in the Django in the permission way. So in the Django, you have a user, and then under this page, you can see you can have different permissions. And on the left side, as a user permission, you can see in my tables and the databases, I have so many different tables. For each table, you can add, create it, change, or delete. You can specify which of the permissions this user can do. So it can control you in a very detailed granularities about how you can do it. So the permission-based way and the role-based ways, they're normally being used together. You have a group of the permissions. They will be like aggregated together as a role. So these are the two most standardized ways to doing it. And then there is another way called access control list. This is like one of the standardized, like or pretty common example is like the AWS S3. I'm not sure whether you guys have taken the computer like a cloud computing that unit. But in the S3, if you want a specific user to access a specific item inside that bucket, you can actually write a JSON of the configuration there to say, okay, this user matching a specific rule, then he can access this. So in this way, the configuration become a JSON file or a configuration files, so you can have more diversity to do the control. And the implementation ways, like building upon of these two different types or three different types, are many kind of based on these kind of ways. So they will have different ways trying to manage how, like what's the service you can access and do the different ways to configure it. So the involving of the authorization is more about how you configure these authorization things. So yeah, this part of the concept will be a bit more complex, and you probably want to be able to understand it pretty intuitively for now. But you just need to remember the authorization. If you have an interview, you should tell the interviewer, say, the authorization is determines what you can do in the system, and separate different people can do different things. So that's from the concept level. And we just said like different ways to do the authentication. So it can be the password security question or the PIN. It can also be your mobile devices trying to just tag and scan in, or your voice, your face, your fingerprints. But normally one is not enough. Like cybersecurity ways, like people can mock up your fingerprint and hack into your system. So nowadays, like cybersecurity is trying to enhance these authentication ways and authorization ways. So yeah, this is one of the examples about how you doing the authorization. And in our system, typically we will design three different roles. I think that should fit in most of the applications. So from my previous experience in the companies enterprise, we normally define three levels of the roles. The first role is admin. Admin will be your company people doing any like operations with the system, create a new organization, or assign different people with different permissions. As an editor in the system, he will log in with specific organization, and he will be able to update a lot of information in the system. But as a viewer for a specific organization, he can only view the data, like digest the information, but he cannot do any update with the information. So that's normally what we will do. And in this demonstration and in our full stack applications. But for other ways, you probably can do in this location, time, or device-based access control things. It's where it depends. But you don't really need to get this implement for now. But you need to have this concept in your mind for future usage. And like a typical example about how you do the authentication in application, especially the front-end application, is user will enter the credential, for example, username and password, and the username and password will send it to the backend. The backend will verify it with a database record about the password. And then it will generate a section or a token. The token or section will be sent to the front end. And if it's not a valid username and password, it will return like a message. And in the backend, you should log that there are some attempt to log into the system as one of the user. Probably someone is trying to hack in your system. And if he tried several times and it's not a success, you should lock the account to avoid further problems. So this is a normal like workflows when you're doing the authentication. And to doing the best practice in the system is you need to have a strong password policy. And ideally, you should implement MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. For example, when you log into the system, you probably should send like a SMS code and ask the guy to use the SM code to type in and do a further authentication. Why it's called a multiple factor authentication is because you will use not only one ways, multiple ways to log in. So other than the SMS, you can also send an email with a token and ask the people to type in the email token into the system, and then you can get them guaranteed like a login. There are other ways. For example, you use like authenticators with this kind of dynamically generated code that's currently is already being enforced actually in universities and a lot of organizations. And it will keep being the trendings because for most of the applications from the government level and the governance levels, currently most of the governance are request the companies to implement FA into the system. And also you need to securely like store the credentials. So this is why in the Django section, we highly suggest you use the Django, not the Flask, because I see a lot of students still like students trying to store the password in the plain text in the database. And on top of that, like if you use Django, it already have the built-in strong password policies there. That's when I doing the demonstration, when I trying to create a super user, I type in a very, very common password and it give me the hint, say you shouldn't do this. So this kind of features already built in by the Django. Also the FMA, if you want to implement this in the Django later, you will have a package can help you to do that. I have checked that actually, so I can tell you that it's already there is a very mature packages can allow you to do that. You just need to install that package, get all of the configuration done, you get this functionality. But if you use a Flask, then you probably will spend quite a lot of time to replicate what the other people have done for the MFA like libraries in another like in the Django. So that's kind of the good things for the Django. And Django also provided another good capability is you can do the secure audit. So what's a secure audit means? Like when I go to the dashboard, you can see here, I was trying to do a lot of changes in the system. They will get that logged. So if you have this log, you can come back later to say, is there any like a security problems or security leaking problems there? So Django already provided you that kind of functionalities. You just need to hook them with your system together. But with a Flask, you don't have that capability. And then is a section management. We will have like a detailed discussion about this in the next session. And the rate limited is what we are saying. Like if someone log into the system and login failed several times, you should block it. Like doesn't allow them to log in again because someone probably trying to brutally hacking into the system. And there are several common mistakes. The plain text password, we already said that. Weak password, that's kind of already been like demonstrated. Missing access control, which is a common made mistakes nowadays if you are the junior and you're trying to build an application. Like why we use the Django, Azure, this kind of different things and have this specific sections about the authentication operation is trying to address this problem. So you need to bear in your mind that when you're trying to build an application or you're trying to deliver a lot of features, you need to bear in mind you should do the access control. And it's insufficient logging. That's normally happen things is like you don't really know when a user log in or he have the password wrong. But basically with Django, you have these built-in capabilities, so you don't need to worry about that. And then is the GWT. So why the authentication have actually a challenging? So just now when we say these authentication workflows, we can see here, the front end will send authentication to the back end. Back end will check whether that password is valid or not. And then it will generate a section or a token. What does that mean? And specifically in these current days, when we're trying to have a front end and back end to be separate, then it means the front end and back end will communicate through the HTTP or the WebSocket, which we mentioned yesterday. And they often running on top of different domains. Then if we have one request come here and the user type in the username and the password already, next time when he trying to access something being protected by the authentication token, then you shouldn't ask the same user to type the username and the password again. That's common sense, right? But how? We needed a way to get the front end and the back end to recognize each other. So front end will come in and have a token, probably something. Tell the back end, say, okay, this is my token. You can go there to check your record, say, I am the authenticated guy. So it's like in the ancient times when people was like ruling the army, they will have a specific like a token or some signals say I am the like a rulers or I'm the leader of this army, so I can control the army. So how we implement that into this system and make sure we can verify the request identity for each request without asking them to type in the username and the password every time. This is they're actually like from what we have discussed until now, there are actually two ways. The first way is called a section based. So for example, this page, when I'm trying to log out, and then when I'm trying to access the same page again, it won't get me in. I need to type the password again. And after I type the password and get authenticated and come in, then I can be freely access any page. But how they're doing this section checking is being implemented by a section way. So basically in the Django, you should have the cookie. And you can see here, there is a section ID. See, this is the section ID, get the front end and the back end to verify the identity. If I delete this section ID and I refresh, you can see I basically getting logged out. So this means when I'm trying to do the login, the backend and the front end doing the communication, and the backend generate one of the section ID for me, and it write into the cookie. So next time when I'm doing the request for other pages, this section cookie ID I can actually show you here. So together you have a better understanding of it. So this is identify page. So you can see from here in the cookie part, we actually get this one being put in. So you can see in this request, subscript request, we have our section ID inside of this request being passed to the backend. So the backend will extract this section ID and compare this section ID with the one it saved inside of the database to verify is these two are the same or not. If these two are the same, then we will grant you the permission to access this page. If not, then we will reject this request, return something else to you. So this is the first way you're doing the authentication, which called a section-based way. However, these ways you find it have a problem. The problem is every request, it will need the backend. So you need to store this section ID somewhere. It can be in the memory, or it can be inside of the database. So every time when you have a request to come in, the server side, we're needing to do the calculation or retrieve the data from the database to do the comparison. Say, is that to match? If that to match, then okay, you are ready to go. If not, then you have the problem. Then this way have the problem is every request, if you want to do the authentication check, you need to go through that specific one server to do the authentication check, which means it's harder for multiple backends. So for example, if you want to scale up, then your bottleneck will be the authentication server. Everyone will must go through there. So that is the problem of it. We need something better, which means we need something required no server storage. It can verify the user without retrieve the data from the database. It should work across multiple servers as a distributed system, so they don't need to really communicate with each other. But they can, like when you give it a token, he go to the backend and get like the dictionary, or like in the spy, you always have a dictionary of the book. Someone send some no like meaningless things to you, and you use that to do the mapping, and you figure out, okay, this guy was trying to say something to me. So this kind of design can be distributed and secure with a distributed system, which is a solution coming into called GWT. I think if you have taken the unit of the cybersecurity, there is a specific labs there ask you to try to hack the GWT token. So what is GWT? GWT is like the digital ID card. User log in once with the credentials, and the backend will create a special digital ID called GWT. The server will then sign it with a secret key. And then this secret key being signed have a token. The token will be sent back to the front end. And then the front end will every time, like the section ID, he will use this ID for every request he sends to the backend. So backend will know, okay, this is a guy who trying to log in. He will get this GW token because it's being signed with a secret key. Then you hold the secret key in your backend. Every server, every service in the backend can have that secret key, and then they can use the secret key decrypted this token and doing the verification and to verify whether you are a valid user. So in this way, the whole system becomes parallelized and distributed. You don't really have a single fair point in this system, which make it extendable and sustainable. So this currently is the most popular ways for the front end and back end applications to do the authentication. So how it works, this is the workflow. So for the front end, normally it's a React application. It will doing the login with the username and password, and the backend will generate and assign a GW token and return the token to the front end. And later, when you're doing the API request, your request will come together with a GW bearer token, and the backend will just have a special thread there to doing a very simple calculation to verify whether this GWT signature is valid or not. If it is, it will return the protected data and resources back to the front end. And I think I also can show you how it works in the application wise. So normally what you do is, let's say we have this application here, and this one is here. So you can see this is actually a GW token. It's very long and it looks like some meaningless characters. How you get that in is basically, for example, I trying to get in with my credentials and password. And when I do this, when you go to the network, you can trying to figure out here. I think, no, not here then. Where is the, here? Oh, no, not this one. And for you guys, if you don't really have a context, how you should use this kind of browser to do the debugging, this is the way how you do it. So you go to the inspect and you go to the left side. You can see there all of the request action is there. You just need to find the specific request doing the specific thing. Let's try it again. So if you cannot see that, you can try to log in again. And because front end will send a request. So you can see it's actually send it through the token request, which is here. Okay, we find that request. Let's get it larger. So in the backend, we have an endpoint like we have said here. this one here. So it will send the username and password to a specific API endpoint. This is the endpoint, and this is the payload. So this is my payload, username and password. And then this is being returned access and refresh key. This is a GW token. And the next, when you're trying to access some like protected data, for example, here, if I access it by the GWT way or Azure way, you can see here in the authorization section, it using the bear, and then it get this like a access token as a very long chunks of these credential things, and then it will get the access, comes back with this data you need. So this is how the whole workflow works in these two ways. And then you kind of wondering what's actually inside this very long and complex and not readable characters. We actually can try to decode it and show you what's there. So this is normally a tool for you to check that. The university internet is a bit slow, so it will take a while to load this page. While it's loading, we will say. So the GW token actually is open standard. So the whole thing, how it works is as what we have expanded. So the front end and back end will use this one to do the communication. In the back end, it will use a secret key to decode it and verify whether the signature part is valid or not. So this format actually is in this formatting way. So if you read this clearly, you can see this one here, it should have two dots. And in the before the first dot is actually the header. The header will declare what's the token type it is and what's the algorithm was used to sign this token. And in the second section, you can see it's a payload, which is the data you want to send to the front end to do the work. And the third part is actually a signature. You can see it here. The signature is actually need a secret key here to say whether you can be verified or not. So if I like type like paste what I have put like our GWT key here, you can see it's being decoded. Here is what's the algorithm we are using. We are using the standard one as the before one. What's the information in our token? These are the information in our token. We have a user, email. You can put more things here. This is just the general information for this user to see whether he like to do the permission control later. And this part is actually specifically for the Azure service to do the authorization. And the last part, you can see it haven't say how to do the. It says the signature is actually invalid. So if you type some random things in and trying to do the verification, I think you can see you type it, the left part actually being changed. It means like in the backend, in the jungle, you actually have that secret key. And they use that secret key to do the verification. So in the best practice, this is explaining about the structure of the GWT. So we just mentioned in the header, you declare what's the algorithm it should use. And then later, when it's trying to do this verification of the signature, it will based on the header, payload, and the things you declare in the payload, and together with the secret key backend horse to doing the verification. If it's matched, then the signature will be valid. You will be a valid user. If not, then you will be rejected. So that's basically how the GWT token works. So algorithm, there are a lot of different algorithms. This is the one we are using. There are others you can use. Basically, there are different crypton like algorithm. They all been well designed. Like if the content computing is not invented, then you don't need to worry about security with this different algorithms way. And the type is normally is GWT in our context. And then you can see here is kind of, this is a rejected claims. So you need to say who issued it and what's the subject and when it will be expired. And then you can add extra things in your, like the payload. For example, we actually add a lot of things here. You can customize as you need. And in the last part is using the secret to do the verification. And the best practice is you need to use HTTPS to do the token transmission, because compared to the HTTPS will get the transmission of the data in an encrypted way. So the backend will decode it. It's the same thing actually as the GW token, how it works. In all the times when you use the HTTP way, someone hijacked the request in the between. For example, someone put a virus in your router. They can hijack every request from you and then steal all the password, username, or all the private information you have, and then send it to a third party and hack you. That's how it works before. If you use the HTTPS, then your data transmits to the router or any computer on the internet. The request payload will be encrypted until it reaches the server of your server of your destination server, and then destination server will use a secret key to decode the request information and verify you are the valid user and use that information to process the request. So HTTPS definitely is a must for all of the application nowadays, because it's too easy for the hackers to hack the HTTP. And another thing is you need to set up the appropriate expire time. One bad side of the GWT is if you have issued the token with a valid time, for example, 1 week, then within this 1 week, they can always use this token to come in and then access all the data you have or all the service you have. So if during this 1 week time, you find out this guy is a hacker and you don't really have the capability to disable his access unless you delete this user or lock the user's capability. But this is kind of a potential risk. If you kind of leave your computer open and you logged in, someone go to your computer and store your token and use it in somewhere else, access your service, steal your data, that's possible. So one of the best practices is you set your expire time as probably like 1 hour or 2 hour. And then after 1 hour, 2 hours, you will use a refresh token in the background, trying to refresh your token. And if the user close the browser, it will means it cannot refresh the token in the background. Then after 2 hours, the GRI token will be expired, which means if someone else store your computer and trying to open this page and trying to steal your credentials, they won't be able to get that token to be valid and access your data. So this is what it means when we say set appropriate expiration time. And then is the strong secret key. What does that mean? So we actually talk a lot about the secret key, but what's that? I think we haven't mentioned it very clearly. We can give it an example, which is a bad practice actually. So in the Django settings, you can see it here. There is a specific variable called a secret key. This is a secret key you are using. And this actually have the warning here, say you need to keep your secret key used in the production. For now, if we haven't set this Django secret key in our local, and then it will default to use this one. If anyone, for example, here, for our token here, and let's see, we copy this one. This is being signed with a secret key I actually just provide to you. So you can see it should be valid. No, it's not. I think I actually changed the production secret key. But that's the idea, is like if your secret key being stolen by someone, it means your whole backend is being stolen. Anyone can issue a token with a proper access to your system. Your system basically is being hacked. So you must store your secret key properly in somewhere and don't use a weak one. Otherwise, your whole system will be hacked. And there are some other things you should notice. For example, the sensitive data not in the payload. For example, your password shouldn't be in the payload, something like that. But that's a general principles. When you apply it, you will gradually understand what it means here. So into the comparisons between the GWT and the section. Section normally exists when you have a front end and back end still in the same service, like the MTV or MVC architecture, like we mentioned in the Django. So it will be stateful, and you need the server-side storage, and it will harder to be like scale up if you have multiple services. So that's a problem. It's good for like a application just have the backend being up and running, the front end backend together. The GWT is more future ways. It will have the front end stateless, and it will self-contained. So anyone with a secret key can use a secret key to verify your GWT token whether it's valid or not. But the problem is, as we said, you cannot invalidate it after you issue this one. So that's why we need to set the expire time very short. It's very good for the microservice or complex architectures like our full stack architecture here. So this is comparisons and all of the concept side we need to do in this authorization and authentication, because we will use GWT for the front end and back end communication and the Python package communication. So then we go into the practice staging. How can we practice it in the Django? So Django, as we said, it's built in as the section-based way. So when you check your Django application, you can see in the like installed app. So let's see it here in the install app. You can see this app and this app here already being installed, which means it's default to these two ways to do the authentication. So this auth actually is one. With this built-in username and password system, he will trying to give you to do the username and the password verification. Section means it will use this middleware trying to maintenance the section I showed you before was. And it integrated with the Django templates. So you can like control which page the user can see, which page not, as I demonstrated before. So you can see like in the section-based user authentication workflow is like you have a login view, which is the Django admin page you have seen there. But if you wanted to have a specific application by yourself, you actually can write one by yourself. So you just need to import a login and authentication functions from this authentication app. And then you're doing the authentication. If this authentication will return you a user, if it's not authenticated, it will want to return you a user. So you use this one, say, okay, this authentication function will verify this user and password is matching what the database record is. And if that's the case, then it will return the user to you. And if the user is valid, you can log in the request and the user. This operation, this function will do is it will assign this request with a token to this user, which is what we have seen here in the cookie. So that's basically after you're doing the login, like a section operation, you should be able to see that in the cookie. That's in the traditionally how you do that. But however, nowadays we have as we said, we have the front end and back end separations. So how can we get it done as the GWT way or the token based ways? So it will, like in the Django, if you have a request to come out, you basically use another package to solve your problem. So what we are using is this package. It's called a simple GWT. And we basically can search it and show you their documentations. So this is a documentation of the single GWT. So you can see, as we said, it can set the access token lifetime. It can also set the refresh token lifetime and rotate the refresh token. So if you have like a refresh it, whether the token before was should be invalid, next time you shouldn't get it like work a lot. So it will have a lot of like built-in functionalities for you to use. And all you need to do to get this work is as we shown up here. You just need to install this package and set it in your like a setting file and put some GWT settings there. So that's basically what we have shown there. So for our access token, we have 60 minutes of the lifetime. And for the refresh token, we have 1 day of the lifetime. So you can adjust that based on your application's like criteria. And then you should, as we done it in the front end, this application here, we can see in the, I think we show you guys in the token request somewhere before. Yeah, in this one here, you need to set up a REST endpoint. And under this REST endpoint, you should be able to send the username and the password to it. And then this endpoint should return you with a token. And the front end can then store the token somewhere and decode it and use that in the next coming over the request. Then it means you need to have an endpoint in the backend. How you do that? Basically, is simple like this. You just import this view and this refresh token views and get these two paths being set up. After this, you have the capability to use a username password to access the refresh token and the token. And after you get the refresh token, you have the API to use the refresh the token to refresh your token in the front end. So, and until now, that's done in the Django's backend. And you probably will ask in the GWT, how can we kind of protected our endpoints? For example, for specific endpoints, you just want someone is authenticated to access. For example, this is an example. So if you have API endpoints and you have a view just like a for specific authentic user to being viewed, you just need to import this permission class and the is authenticated class here and declare it here, say this GET request must be authenticated. Otherwise, they cannot access this page. And then what will be in the middleware we declare here, like why we declare this one here, is when this request come in, it will go to this permission class and this specific class, and then check in your request, do you have this token, GW token? And is this token valid or not? If it's not valid, the downstream code won't be executed. It will directly return that you are not a valid user to the front end. And that's done. And if you are authenticated, you will be returned to this kind of protected views here. So you can do all other things here. So this is how you implement the protecting views in the GWT. And then we have said before, like we probably want to have the customized token claims. So for example, in our claim here, where is our claim? It's gone. Oh, it's here. So for our one, we have a lot of special things in the payload. Then the default one, when you come to import that token view in here, they just trying to put your username, password, and user ID in the token. They want to put extra things there. Then this is how you do it. You can customize this token obtain peer serializer. And in the serializer, you just add what you want to put there into it. And that's it. You return this token, the front end will get these 2-3 things in their payload. And then there is another thing called CORS, because we are actually on different domains. For example, here, my backend and the front end actually is running under different domain. And to be strict in the order times, the front end and the back end should actually have the same domain. And if it's not the same domain, like in the Django, if you request it from a different domain, it will reject your request. So that's a security consideration in the very beginning when you do the MTV, because you don't really want a hacker from a third-party website or anywhere construct a request and hack your website. But under our scenario is our front end and back end definitely will be in different domains. Then how we get that work? You just need to import this like a app, and then you put it in the middleware and set a wider list of what's domain you will allow them to come in. So this is how you do it to allow the cross-origin request security. And then in the end, you need to write the test for the GW token authentication, right? So this is how you do that. So you basically, as we said in the Django, you can import the API test cases. So you can use setup user and password, and then you can, if you have a protected endpoints as we have done before, you can use this way to write the test. So this covers how we do that in the Django. In the Django, what in our in our architecture. Do I have that architecture diagram? Let's try out, find out our architecture diagram. So in this architecture, we're trying to implement it. We can see currently we are mentioning two things. One is the Django backend, one is the Lex the front end, how they're doing the communication and authentication. So Django actually here, the Django's role is trying to sign you the GW token, right? So Django will take the username and password and issue you a GW token and return to the front end, and you are responsible for store it somewhere. But for the GraphQL or for example, our data pipeline, we also want to securely to access all these different services. Then how? This basically is the next section we will talk about. So Azure, how we do that. This is basically using the knowledge we just mentioned, the GWT. If the Azure actually have the secret key by itself, then Azure service can use the secret key to decode your GWT token and do the verification whether it's a valid GWT token or not, and then verify whether you are the user. So that's basically how it works. Front end, we'll first log in via the Django authentication server, and the Django authentication service will return the GWT back to the front end. And the front end, when it wants to do the GraphQL request, like what we mentioned yesterday, it will put the GW token together inside the request. Then Azure, when you configure it, you actually should specify what's the GW token it should have. And then Azure will use the secret key to verify this GW token. If the guy is a verified user, it will go to the database, like query the data and return to the front end. So this is a multi-service architecture, how it works. And under our scenario, when we have Azure as another service there. So then like building, this is just the workflow we just mentioned is just to do the authentication. However, for us in the Azure we mentioned yesterday, is Azure also provided your user capability to doing the row level security or drawer level based security. So how we do that? Actually, Azure have a specific format of the GW claim format, which is something like this. So you need to have a specific key in your claims. Named is called HTTP Azure GW claims. And then inside it, you have some your defined roles, like a Azure allotted roles. Like if we define it as admin, editor, or the viewer, we should put the admin, editor, and viewer here. And then your default role. What's the role for this specific user? And what's the ID for it? Or you can put the extra things here so you can use later. So that's the specific format was being like requested or defined by the Azure, say your GWT token must be something like this so they can use in the background. It's kind of a contract between different GW service. So this where user knowledge we just mentioned is how to do the customized token claim, which is something here. So in the Django, you basically import the token obtain pure serializer as we have done before. And then we should construct this Azure claims dictionary and then update our token with this dictionary, return to the front end. And then this time, the front end will have this Azure token claims like what we have shown here. So if we get this response, like this one here, copy it. And then we get it being decoded by payclaim. You can see here is actually after that what's in the claim. So this one will be sent because your GWT will be sent to the Azure with this kind of claim in your payload. The Azure will use different fields inside of this one to do the authentication and authorization. That's how the authorization works in the Azure. So you can see in the when we're doing the variable settings. So when we go to the Docker Compose file and go to the our code Azure section, and we can see it here. Oh, okay. We actually haven't give it to the GW token setting, which means like later when we trying to get it working, we don't have this Azure access, like secret keys being setting, we just have this, then it means we want to be able to use that GW token to access our like Azure servers. So in the demo, we will show you how to do that to get the GW token match. And then how you're doing the role-based access control in the Azure to make it a match. So just now in our token, we have shown it. You can see you have so many different fields here. For example, the user ID or the organization ID. Then how you're doing the role-based control or the like organization-based control basically is in the permissions you setting in the Azure. You say this organization ID should equals to this value. This value will reference back to the GW token to find the value of this to match whether this one is the same. If it's the same, then it will pass you to the next stage to doing the like data access. So how you get the control with role-based access, and role-based access is basically done by this way. And I think this is something we show you guys yesterday. So just now is how you're doing the definition of the control, and how you get that done in the Azure page is you basically click these different layers of the role, and then in the rules, custom check rules, you just setting what's like variables you need to check to get that being authenticated, authorized. And then you want to probably test the Azure integration. You only be able to easily test it in the Azure service itself. So normally we will do is we will test this like token endpoints and to verify I actually have that token claim being issued properly. So that's from the Azure side, how we're doing the authentication. It's basically like you just need to, in the Django's like issued GW token in the payload, you put the claims in a specific format. And then in the Azure side, you need to configure it with a separate key. And then you configure the authentication rules in the interface we just mentioned with the specific configuration ways they define it and export these configuration settings. This is how it works in the Azure. So we're talking about how to do it in a second service in our architecture. So this one here, then how the front end being able to doing the protection. So in the front end, like the workflow is very simple. We already keep saying that. So you need to call the API side to get the GW token. Then you need to store it somewhere and manage the GW tokens refresh. How we manage it here is actually you can there are a lot of ways. What I have done here is in the front end. Front end actually also have a database. It's called IndexedDB, which is things here in the application under the storage. So you can see under these storage places, I have this kind of domain. Under this domain, they have access. This is where I store my access key and refresh token. And next time when I refresh my access token and the refresh token, I will update this like the storage places. Because I want the user don't really need to log in very frequently, so I set it expire for a long time and I save it to the like IndexedDB. So next time when they refresh the page and trying to get it back, they can just directly retrieve the data from here. They don't really need to log in again. So this is how I am doing it. And in the front end, you will decode the GWT payload, which is get it from here, and decode it, get all the access keys or stuff there, and then use that in the front end to control your component. Check the permissions, whether the user have the permissions to access specific page, specific component. It's just a lot of if-else controls there. So this is a demo code about how the GW token should be decoded. So basically, for example, if you already have that token in the IndexedDB as what I just shown, you basically need to, from the local storage, get the item. And for me, it's actually not the token I use, is access. So you just get the item access. It's a key value dictionary in the local storage. So you just use this way. And you call a library called GW decode, and it will decode the GW token and return you all the payload. So you can access all the values you put in the payload here in the front end. And then how you do the permission control is, as I said, it's just a lot of if-else. So how to write that if-else? You probably write a wrapper on top of all of the components. For example, here I write a wrapper called has permission. it will call the function we define it here called get payload. The get payload will get the token back, and if your token have this like permission and include the permission, like specific permission. So here you basically your input is, do I have the permission of the editor? If your permission have this one, it will return true, otherwise return false. So when you're trying to implement it in your protected component, you will use these ways to get whether it has the access or not. If it doesn't have access, it will return a fallback. Otherwise, it will get you pass and access the downstream component. And this is basically how you do that. So the predicate token component is basically being used everywhere. Then it will give you the create. If you have this permission to do the posts created, it will give you the permission to access this created post bottom. Otherwise, this will be fallback to the no access in the front end presentation there. And the role-based way is just another way to doing the like a permission control, like a checking. So just to know here, we do the permission ways to do the checking. So you use these ways, like this if else here, to checking whether the guy have the permission. But role-based is just in the front end. You do the if else. Say if this user is in this role, if it's in this role, then you should show him this role-based page. For example, if the role equals admin, you show the admin URLs and the settings stuff. If it's just the editor, you show the editors should like access the items. So this is called a role-based way. So in the end of the day, in the front end is or if else. So the to summarize that, the complete workflow is you receive the GW from the backend, you store it in a secure places. For example, I store it in the local storage index DB, and then you decode it in the front end in the GW tokens and use that for the usage. And then when you're doing the rendering and the component control in the React, you use that GW token to write a lot of if else to make sure you access the proper component. That's basically the idea behind it. And then we have this, and this, how they kind of issue the GW token and access it and kind of refresh it. Then how our machine learning model or AI model to access backend security. Can we still use a GW token? Then if we use a GW token, we need to send the username and the password somewhere, right? Then it becomes insecure. Because if you have a service somewhere, if you have this kind of, your model was running on a server, for example, it's my personal server, like a PC, then I probably need to hard code my username and the password in the code somewhere. I can ignore it, but still it will have this username password and use that pretended they are a user and access like a backend, the API side, which it works. It definitely will work. However, it's not works ideally because it's machine trying to communicate with the API. It should use different ways, which is a token-based way. So ideally, for a machine learning module or AI module, if they want to access the backend, we will want to give it a token or just a specific character, and then it will come to us like the section-based way. The token will be kind of checked and then give it the permissions to return the protected rulers to the front end. And if you find out this server or for some reason you leaking this token in the machine and someone use it to hack your system, then in the backend you can regenerate a new token, invalid this one. So next time when each guy was trying to request again, it will be invalid. So how can we do that in this like Django REST framework? It's actually also very easy. It's another packages you just need to install. So it's called a REST framework token. So let's try. It's actually building directly inside of this Django REST framework. So you just need to put it in the install the app and get your authentication classes with this into the input. Then in the background, you can in the front end or in the Python Python script, you can request the things by this way. So you put the authorization in the header, you have a token, and you put your token here. You can access this protected page for the data. And if your token is, you should save it, like the token, save it safely in the environment variables. But if your token was being like stolen by someone, you can just directly invalidate. So this is how you communicate with this Python package with the backend. And I also have I can show you how it's being done in our backend. So after you doing this page changes here, just add these 3 lines or these two part in the setting files. In the Django admin, you will be able to have these things. If you want to create a new token, you just need to add it. And then in the API request, you just need to copy this token and then put it in your API request, like what we are doing here. Just to put that token here. And then when you're trying to access that specific endpoints, you can use this token. And if you feel like your token is expired or is being stolen, you just delete that token. Then all the coming requests will be invalid. So that's how you communicate and get it secured like access with the backend for the Python package. There are some expanded discussion here, like now in the future, like security and like cybersecurity is becoming a very, very important topic nowadays because we have so many very important assets as digital assets. So you probably have your credentials, your bank accounts, all the things being stored online. That you don't really need to go to the branches to access your data, but this means someone else can use like take advantage of the authentication ways or authorization ways built into the system. They probably have some problems there, flaws there. And the hackers can take advantage of that, build some automatical process, and store your money from your bank account, or steal your private information from your medical account or something like that. So it's keep becoming a battle in process, like hackers trying to mocking they are the real user, and for the developers and the kind of us as a like a full stack architecture or the application developer, we need to keep an eye on that. Make sure we practice the best practice. How should you implement authentication and authorization in your system? For example, currently using the GWT until now, what we mentioned in the practice is almost just a single factor. But notice, because single factor, as we said, like in our design until now, if someone steal your username and password, it's gone. Like they definitely can hack into the system as your like a role. However, our application, like my application currently, is not a really very valuable asset. So the hackers probably don't really want to waste their time to hack my application. But if you come to the production and you have your application being applied across the world and you starting to generate a profit from it, then you need to think about it. Because when you can generate profit of it, some people were like looking at it. When we trying to, for example, when I was in the like a medical company, when we trying to bring the application up running, probably just 3 minutes after it's up and running, we already see it from the logs. Someone was trying to randomly using the robot to send a request slash login and using some random username and password combinations to hacking our system. They definitely cannot do that because we already consider all these scenarios in. But if someone actually leaking their passwords to someone, then they probably can take the advantage of the system and hack into it and store the medical information from the user. So from the compliancy perspective and the security perspectives, the governance perspectives, it's actually have more and more restricted rules actually applied by the law for you to have more higher security there in your system. For example, multi-factor like authentication already become a obligation for most of the applications. And for a medical application, your private health information for the end user should always be encrypted. And nobody other than the end user and the user actually being permitted to access that data. Other than these two people, two types of people, nobody else should be able to see that. So when you're doing the architecture of this whole application, you should not just thinking about what we just teaching today about the authentication authorization. You should also take consideration into other, like AWS provide a service called KMS. KMS is used to have a user-specific secret key, and each user will have their own secret key, so they can encrypt the data into the system. In the back end, you want to be able to see their data. Only themselves have the access to that data. So this become a trending nowadays and in the future. So you need to first implement all of these things by yourself, understand how the GWT works in different contexts and application like scenarios. But in the future, you should keep an eye on to the most best practice on the market, and you should adapt to that because we need to build the secure applications. If it's not secure, it will cost you too much money to fix that later. So that's basically most of the content today. Then we will try to do a demo. So the demo will be, that's where we also be the homework for you. So the demo will be, you need to implement the GWT token setup with the endpoints to access the token, use the username and password, and set up the Azure to make sure it have the same GWT like separate keys to make sure they can access, like use the GWT tokens from the Django to access the like data from the Azure. And also the front end should be able to like implement a login and protected views. And also like the Python package actually is very simple. It's just a copy this kind of code there and generate the token, but you should also practice that. So I will try to get that demonstrated. So the code will be up on what we have done yesterday. I haven't get my Docker in. So this platform code, the latest status are already pushed to the cloud. And yesterday's demo code already also been pushed here. So we get a Docker compose up, and then we started to implementing the simple GWT in the Django side. We use the same way we have done yesterday, is using the Cloudy to do that. Then our question is, I want to implement Django simple GWT. Then we basically copy the code it generated. It works with previous few days. I'm not sure how it works today. Okay, it's generating the code. So it's asked me to first doing the pipe install, and I will follow the instruction. Doing the pipe install, we need to first into that container of the Django, which is this ID. And using the bash, get it in, and using the pipe install what? It says here. We do the pipe install, and we get it installed. And we also mentioned we should put it in the requirements file and specify the version we have using. So next time when you're trying to use it, you need to use a build. After we install that, it says we need to configure it in the setting. So we go to the setting. That's the installed app. We have this one here. We just get this added. And also, it need to set some things else, like the simple GWT setting. We need to install a delta. This is a built-in function from the Python. It's just doing the calculation of the delta. And then we needed to put the GW token things here. So we just put it, no, we have two things to save. First is in the REST framework, which is here. We needed to replace the default authentication classes. It doesn't have that, so we just add it, default authentication classes into GW token one. And then we copy these simple GW settings into there. And we actually have mentioned these several things, like the access keys and lifetime things. This sign key, if we haven't declared it, it will use Django's default one. we potentially just, these are actually all the default ones. So to get it simple and straightforward, we do it that way. I think I still have a error in my Django's application because I haven't installed the pillow. So I will get that installed. That's something I missed yesterday. I will get that fixed today in the demo. Jeez. And I'm not sure whether it works or not. Let's. And then it's ask you in the URLs, you will put these two things in, which is in the URLs here. And then we import these two things in. And it's asked to put these two code in. We put this code in. And the rest of things is about how to do the rejection of the user and how to get the like a protected view works, like do the demonstration there. So, but what we currently trying to achieve is just to have endpoint to being able to do the like obtain the token and refresh the token. So in theory, until now, we should be able to ready to go. Then let's see whether we are ready to go. We have this API token endpoints. You can see, yes, we have this page, but we need to get it posted. So let's try. I have a username and password. I think we created a username and password. And username is local.test. And we click the post. Oh, it's not correct. Let's check what's the username and password we put there in the admin. Oh, it's just the admin and the password. So I was wrong. Okay, you can see like when I trying to post the username and password in this kind of the Django provided interface, it's already issued this refresh token and return to me. So I can copy this one. And then in this one, let's try to decode it. You can see that's a default one, which means I don't really have much customizability there to see it. But for us, we have mentioned we need to get our GW token being like being used by the Azure. So we need to have a specified customized token. We will show you that later. Oh, wait a minute, I copied the wrong one. So this is the access token actually. So we have the access token here. So you can see it's the same. And then about the refresh token endpoints, we were trying to verify whether that also works. The refresh token endpoints is this one. So you're doing the refresh token. And then it's needed me to put a refresh token in. And then this should be the one we just copied. Let's try. You can see after we give it the refresh token and we do the post, it return you with a new access token. It means like the GWT tokens like sign, use the username, sign it and refresh it, the process already been done by us. So we are good to go. So you can see it's fairly simple and straightforward in the Django. It's just several lines of the code. But the next thing we need to do is I wanted to make sure in the token, GW tokens payload, it has the thing Azure want. Hopefully it can understand what I mean here. It do understand what I mean. So let's see. So it's asked us to create a new serializer, and inside the serializer, we doing this kind of new ways to doing the authentication and the authorization. And in the URL, we basically updated it with a new one, right? So what I need to do is I need to add this serializer into my system, but we already have a dashboard like an app yesterday for the demonstration purpose. We have a criminal for another demonstration purpose. But to manage all of the authentication things, we probably want another new app to get that managed. then what I will do, I probably will create an app called the core. The core part will manage all the username, password, applications. You can also try to name it authentication. But from my personal experience is in the like a building system of the Django, it's already used authentication for several naming things. So you probably will hit some conflict and very weird bugs. So use a core will be a safe choice. Just put your core logic there. And as a standard way, we doing is we basically added the core into the app. That's what we are doing before. So we have the code there, and we have the code there. And what we want to add is a serializer, how to spare the serializers. So we need to create a file called this, and we create this Python, and then we copy this coding. We copy this coding, and you can see it's basically whether it's super user is getting admin or not admin. So it have a customized viewer for the token already. Then next thing is we needed to, in the viewer, I think we need to have a customized viewer, which is here. I think in the viewer, we should be able to from call the serializer import the serializer we just declared. And we also need to import this viewer. You can see it's not being used, so it's actually should be used here. We need to define this token per view, so it's inherent from it and overrided the serializer classes for the package provided one. And after this two was done, then it means in the project labels URL, we just declare how we doing the view here. So in the URLs, currently for the token, like obtain the token per view, we use the imported one from the REST view, simple GWT, from the package. We actually want to update it with we defining one, which is a Azure pairwise viewer, and we don't want this one. So we needed to update this, which is what it means here, right? We need to use this new ways to do the serializer. And after we done this, we go to the token viewer API token issue one. So we're trying to get it issue the access again. And our goal is this round, we should be able to see the Azure's specific format in the payload. And we paste it there. We can see, okay, we actually have that done. This basically means in the Azure, you have this, what they claimed they requested for. So it is working in the second stage. And afterwards, for the downstreaming code, is this like a Claude was generated, is actually trying to doing the like a register user, which like every time you basically have an endpoint to create a new user, right? So if you want to use the endpoints, do that to do the regestion, you also need to have the endpoints. This is a logic how you do that. We probably want to do that now to do a demonstration because it's a bit too long. And so in our context, when we want to have a new user, they want to be able to register it. They just go to the admin page and we can add a new user here because this is a Django's built-in functionalities. You can try to implement it how to create a new user with the REST endpoint with the knowledge we delivered in the Django section and the React section yesterday. So that's easy and doable. Then the next goal in our homework is we have this Azure's token was being defined, right? So we need to get the Azure also being able to access it. Then how to do that? We need to ask the ChatGPT, right? So currently, as I said in the previous description, we haven't set the Azure with Django's secret key. So my question here is, how can I set the secret key for this Azure service get it to be able to use the Django's GWT, Django issued GWT token. Let's see whether it can generate the proper code. I think it can. Okay, and it's saying, see, it's generating the proper code. So it's highlighted here. So you must have a separate key here, matching both inside the Django and Azure, and make sure you use a separate key in the production. But what it is doing is here, he have a specific key called Azure GraphQL GWT secret, and you put your security here. So we will copy their settings, and we in our setting here we add that in, and we need to check whether this one is matching with our Django's setting one. It's not really matching, so Django actually using this one. So we need to update this one to this one. Currently it's all hacky, like we use a harder coded way. In your production, because it's, you can see here, we are using the environment variable to passing it. So in your production, when you're trying to deploy it, you need to replace this one with the separate keys, save it properly. You shouldn't do it this way, but this one is for the local development purpose. So you can use this ways to do the like a checking. So after we doing this kind of change in the Azure, we should be able to restart the service. But just now we installed 2 new packages. We need to rebuild the Django's package. But after it reboot and resign up, we should be able to access the Azure's tokens with this kind of new generated key because we configure that way. We will do the check when it's being spin up. At the same time, we will implement the token way. So I want to use the REST framework Authent token, which we mentioned in the Python package ways. Python package can use the token to access my Django API. Let's get that task also being done. So you can see this is generating this code here. It's actually don't really need you to install any extra packages. You just need to, in your setting, in your REST frameworks, add this in. And you also need to add this into your, remember we just now for the GW token, we actually have this GW authentication way in. We need to add another middleware here, which is the token authentication within. So we just need to add this one here. Actually, it's already know what I'm trying to do. And then you can see it's already give you the instruction about how should you do, like core it. So if you're using the authentication token, your authorization should start with token. If you're using the GWT, it should be started with a bear, this specific like keyword in the front with the GW token. But the instruction also tell me if I want to use this, I need to do the migration before I can use it. So let's go back to see, okay, Django is up and running properly. So we will go into the Django. So we will run the migration. It's migrating it. And then we will check these token things first. You can see we have a token here, and you can generate a token for your user. So this part is done. And we will need to show you about the authentication part for the Azure. So for now, we're using the admin secret key, so we can access this page very easily. And you can come here and doing the permission control. For example, this patient data, you anonymous, you can access it. And for us, we actually have a user or admin. We have admin. So admins already have all the access. Or user. User probably just can read it, cannot update it. Let's try. to update it. And then we go to this endpoint. Let's see, is that the default? Yeah, it's user. So we have two defined roles. One is admin, one is a user, which we're mapping to this one and this one. Anonymous is when someone haven't logged in, have an invalid token, whether they can access over the data. So that's basically 3 layers of the authentication you should have in your system. So we define is for the user, they only can select it. They cannot insert, right? And we issue, for now, we actually are the admin because we use the admin username and password account. Then we, in the user page, we use a test and we created a password and user as a normal user. So I create a normal user and I try to issue a token for the normal user. Oh, maybe my password is wrong. Let's check. Where's my admin page? Oh, sorry, it's in the wrong page. I should go there. It's not a local. So in here, I only have the admin. Currently, I want to add the test user, and I want to give it a password. So currently, I have the test user. I go to the, where is my authentication page? Here. And I type in the password. Okay, I type in my password, and then I actually issue a access token as a user, which is the user role, which means I use this token in the API. I should be able to only doing the select, not the insert in theory. So how we test it out? There is authentication key here. It's just for the test purpose. So let's try to delete it. Oh no, we shouldn't delete because I don't remember. Authorization, and we have a there token. We put that in, and it's actually provided us the capability to decode it. So we decode it. That looks good. And then we take this out because we don't want to use admin secret. Admin secret is just for you to do the test purpose. It won't be used in the front end for the front end user to access it. So you can see the differences already comes out for this authentication. You can only see the permission to access this query. There is no mutation access now, which means you already control the permissions. To compare it with the admin access, we're trying to issue a token for the admin. We issue a token for the admin, and then we update this GW token here with the admin one. You can see from the front end, from here, the test page, you already been able to see the mutation, which means admin actually have the more access than the user, which is defined here actually. Like we have defined it in the data's configuration. So just now what we're doing is in the permission, we just give the user the select functionality. We haven't give the user insert, update, and delete. So it won't be able to view from the front end. So under these two stage, we basically have have the capability in the homework is what we have done. We have implemented the Django's GW setup endpoints, and we make sure Azure can make sure it have the same GW secret and do the permission control. And we have the Python's token, like the token for the Python package to do the access. So we get these 3 done. The last thing is in the front end, we should be able to use a username and a password, log in, get the token, save it somewhere, and then use that token to access it. So our task next is in the next JS, the next JS UI repo we demonstrated yesterday. So we first get it up and running. So you can see this is the one we built yesterday, right? It have the permission to do the update and insert because anonymous people can do that. Then how can we get it done today is we need to have a login page, right? You should be able to have a login page. And under this current scenario, we probably wanted to, so what we design is for this application now in the front end, we wanted to, if a user coming, if he haven't logged in, we will direct them to the login page. After they logged in, we will redirect them to this page. Otherwise, they won't permit to access this view. That's like currently what we want to achieve. Then we will in the prompt say, I wanted to create the login page in my Next.js app, and then do the login. Save the GWT token to local storage, let's say. And let's just do this first. Don't really get a complex task for the AI. See what's AI can do. So you can see it's already give you the like a hint. You need to create a folder called login and create a page.tsx. So I think in your mind, if you haven't used this Next.js before, you will wonder. For now, we just have the router page. It's like you don't really have the sub page inside it. How can I do that? That's as easy as this. So you have a login, and you have a TSX called a page TSX. That's a page, right? And then we just copy the code for this page. So you say use client. Use client because the Next.js is actually full stack, like a full stack framework. So if you haven't declared the top line use client, it will interrupt it as a server side, like a usage. So you want to be able to use it very easily. So we get this login page pasted. Then let's go to the front end because we have the local host 300. Just now we have a login page. This is the login page we have. So you can see it's actually already have the login page. It looks not that good, but we were trying to come back to fix it later. What it asked me to do next is create a folder called a utilizer and create this function called authentication utilizer. Then I will follow his instruction. I will go to no. Let's check what he's doing. I think they kind of using a complex way to do it. So I just want to use Next.js as a pure front end React framework. Forget about the server side thing. That's what I want to. So because here, like when it's trying to do the protect the routers, you can see it's already say the API. That's actually the API end things. It's not the front end thing. So we give it a different prompt. That's actually the key part of capability when nowadays when you're doing the like a development with AI, you need to understand what's like what you need to achieve and distinguish between whether they are doing the things you need or not. So we can see like what they are doing just now, in my opinion, is not what I want to achieve. So I ask it with a more refined prompt. And it's actually generating, from what I can see, it's actually generating things I wanted. So I need to create in the source, this called library, I need to create another folder called utilize. And inside of the utilize, I have another TypeScript called authenticate.ts, not the JS. So I put that in. It's inside it. And in the component, I need to create a protected component TSX, like what I have shown before. So I probably need to have what's a folder structure is recommended. It's component, COMPONENT. So I have a permanent folder, and then I have this protected component TSX. So we have this, right? And then we copy this coding to the component one. It's actually having to generate over the code because, for example, here it says rest of your component code. It's bad. And then it's ask me to create a API TS in the utilizer, but I don't really actually need that. For now, it says example usage of HTTP request in authentication. It's actually want me to be able to have an abstract API request. So what I will do, I probably will follow his instruction to go to create a API TX. Let's try. Okay. But I think in this page, I need to import the get authentication header. So I need to import get authentication from the auth. It's already being prompted. So we basically have most of the things we required, and we go back to this page and do the refresh again. It still looks very bad, but we're trying to do the request console. Okay, this going into the stage is the CQRS problem I mentioned very earlier. So I need to fix that in the background, in the backend. So basically, it will ask me install a package called Django FIOD request header. So you need to go to the backend and install this one. You see, this is installed, and we also need to put it in the requirement.txt. And what's the version of it? It's 6.4.0. And then it's giving the instruction is about we need to put this in the install the app. Then we follow the instruction, put it in the install the app. And we also needed to have it in the middleware because middleware will kind of get it bypassed. So you don't need to do that in the front end. And you also wanted to specify your like a white list of the domains, which is our front end. I think that's all we need to do. So let's try to do the login again. It actually works. So you can see just now when we're doing the login with the password, it's actually, let's go to the network in the token, payload password, and here, this one. And why it haven't give me the data back? That looks weird. But it's like in the code. Let's go back to check the code. We'll get that page looks better later. So in the code, you can see it's trying to, so we call this endpoint we manually do in the front end after you click the submit button. So the logic control you do the submit is actually here. You click the submit button, and the submit button will kind of, because it's still the form, so it will call the handle submit function. In the function, it will do something and then call this endpoint API token with a post. And it will like doing the JSON stream things and request things from the front end. And the problem is we are not sure whether we get the data properly or not from the backend. So we try to console log it and make sure we actually have that data properly. So let's try to redo it again in the login page. And just now we have some like debug settings there. So let's say we have a wrong password coming. So it's actually give you the like hint you actually put the wrong password. And then when we're trying to put the correct password in, you can see from just now, like it's kind of been, because it's redirected to another page, so you haven't been able to easily see the access token was being returned from the backend, but it's actually working. So it means and we can, because in the code, I think, in the code, we go to the applications. In this code here, if it's success, we also store the access token and the refresh token into the local storage places, which is I show you in the very beginning. You can check it here. So you can see in here is actually being stored already, which means it works. And why we see this 404 is because we don't really have a dashboard router. So it should be redirect you to this page. So let's try to do it again. Log in and we say password, and we sign in. It will go to this page, right? That's like meet the requirements. But our login page is too ugly. We want to get it to look better. Then we give you the prompt. Can you give me a login view looks better with MUI, which is a UI component we used yesterday. So let's see. It's trying to import all the components from the MUI. We kind of installed it yesterday, so you can see it's more modern than what is yesterday. So it's also provided us the capability to customize the theme, which we already done yesterday. So we just need to copy this code to the login.ts, so which is here, login.ts, and we copy it in. And let's see in the login front end, we can see, okay, this page looks much better, right? And it still redirect me to the dashboard. We will fix that. We just check, get this code being fixed quickly. Login, so admin, password. It's also gives you the page to forget the password and the standard ways to do the rejection, which we don't have, but we can add later. But this one looks consistent with the UI in this page and give you the the router redirectory capability. However, this is not meeting our standard, because if I, for example, current setup now, if I delete the access token and a refresh token, and we in theory currently what we want to achieve is we want this router of the like a slash router to be protected. Only the login user can log in this, can view this page. Then how we do that? That's actually the last part we need to do. What we mentioned in the earlier about the front end permission control is there should be a lot of if else to do the permission control for different routers and the components. Then that's the last step we want to achieve. So we want, in theory, is we want this page, all the things here, to be protected. So if we check the permissions, say the permission is not an authenticated user, they should redirect them to the login page. How we do that? We ask the cloud. So I wanted to make sure my page is protected. If the user is not logged in, then redirect them to the login page. How should I do that? With an abstract protected component way. It's actually already like created something idea for me before was, but we just need to make sure this is more explicit about how to do it. So you can see it's actually give you multiple options. The first option is we have a component protected root. We just now we call it a protected component, but this probably will be the like a better name. And what it do is it will go to check the access token, and then come back and doing this whether it's authenticated or not. And then in your pages, you just use these protected routers as a way to use it. So I will follow his instruction here. I copy the code, and I have a component called this. I probably change the name of it. We refactor it to the protected root. And yes, I want to rename it, and I put that in. So I have a protected root. And in my home page, which is my page here, we used yesterday, we imported this root, and it's asked me on the top of it, we just added the protected root on everything. Then it's pretty straightforward. We added this in, and I'm not sure whether that works or not. We go to the page to see whether we have an error there. You can see it works, right? So because just now we delete all the authentication stuff, so it haven't checked that. But when I'm trying to get the login page, or get it into the table page we just shown, it doesn't allow you to do that, right? So you must go into the admin, like login page to do the login. So, and then this time it works because you have these token things here. However, this is not like the code is a bit hacky. So we go back there to check their like a code. This one is just using the local storage and get this access token. If the access token is like is something there, they don't really verify it or not. They will give you to that page, which means like the front end will only check this one to make sure I check these tokens to make sure if you have it, you just pretended you have it, then you can access it. So it's not the best way. So basically, better way to do it, you will want to use the GW token like a decode to decode this one to check it whether it's valid. No, you want to be able to check whether it's valid directly here, but you want to check. You want to manage it better. If we wanted to get this page just being viewed by the user or the admin, you can do more granularity, like refine the control here. So you say, I want, if this page is not authenticated, then you shouldn't access this page. So that's like an add-on you can do here. So you don't really just check whether the token exists or not. And in the background, for example, in this page, in the background, currently we haven't actually set up in the Apollo's like a request header to say I am an authenticated user. So currently, why we can see this page is because we have in the backend set the permission of this one to public, anonymous, anyone can access it. But actually, we don't want the public to access it. We want the front end permission control to be consistent with the backend permission control, which means like you need to like just know the API one. This one is actually for you to inherit this constant, and next time when you're trying to request a URL, it will get the authentication header. And you can see in the authentication header, it will grab the token and put the token in the authorization header and push it to the backend. So the backend can request to verify whether you are a valid user or not. That's how it works in this kind of scenario. Then in the API RESTful endpoint scenario, we should also do it for this Azure setup. And how we do that? We ask the ChatGPT. We say, I want to set up the authorization header for the GW token for this. So because we log in as admin, it should be able to directly check it, like check all the things we just shown. But if we log in as a user, if we set up properly, it shouldn't give us that data, that page. So let's see, it's giving me an updated code of my code. send to him. So I will try to copy this one. And hopefully I can get that demonstrated before my battery die. So here I copied it in. Let's see the code. The code is basically doing things similar. So it's using the get token to get the access token from the local and put it into the authorization if you have a token. And then the same thing for the WebSocket token, right? So in this way, in your request, you basically hook it together with your token. So let's try to refresh the page again. Because we log in the admin, so it should be the same. But if we go here and we delete these two key, and we come back to login as a test user. Okay, something wrong here. Let's keep loading. Oh, it's because of our protected router has some problem. So this logic here is not proper. I think the loading is here. The authentication is low, so it's going to get you to this loading page, haven't refreshed you to the proper page. So we should be able to, we'll fix that code later. But we go to the login page and we use the test user to log in. Okay. I have forgotten my password. I just set it up. I need to reset my password. Anyway, the Django's admin, this is another powerful scenario is you don't really need to build this or use some other pages to reset your password. This is a functionality built into this Django admin page. It's still not getting me authenticated. That's very weird. Why? Let's. Hmm? Is the admin one still working? Oh, heading monitor working. Maybe the user haven't been active status or staff status. Let's check whether that's a problem. So we go to the token. Oh no, go to this page. Application. Oh, application is here. And we delete this one. Let's try again. And we go to the login page. In theory, it should work. If not, we will try to figure the bugs and send an update later. Okay, it's working now. But you can see there is an error because for now, my permission of the user, the normal user under this context, doesn't have the capability to do the insertion or other things. So it doesn't find any like a patient tracking data for me. Like here, it doesn't have the permission. That's why it's a hit this error here. But if I give it the permission as an admin user here, for example, without any check, and I save it, save the permission, and doing the update, I save the permission without any check. I just doing the demonstration, right? So I can do anything here. And then I should be able to give it the user permissions here also. So I should be able to toggle it and setting the permissions for the normal user. So in theory, you should actually have better permission control in the front end, like as if you have the user like in the drawer, then you shouldn't give them the access or doing the calling to this endpoint. But here, I just want to demonstrate to you the backend actually have that enforcement there, restrict you to access that. But when I fix the permission, is actually working there. So that's the end of the demonstration. I will trying to clean up the code and, or probably not clean up, or just push it to the cloud. And you can check what I have done just now. But what we have implemented is using the Django built-in user system to build a GW token, like a authentication, like a sign server. And then we set up the Azure with the same GWT secret keys to make sure you can authenticate it by that way. And we also have a token in the API side, so the API can call with to query the protected data. And also in the front end, we demonstrated how to do the login to access like a token and the refresh token, and doing the like a view control in the front end and protected different routers. So this is something you need to go back and practice by yourself. This will be definitely useful later when you build your production, like build a project and deploy to the production. So it's a bit complex today. Any questions until now? I think we're just in time for 2 hours. Is there any question online or offline here? No? If there is no questions, then like go back to trying to like think about what we have done today and get your head clear about what we have done and trying to do the homework, implement it. And tomorrow we're starting to do the DevOps side, like deploy your application, how to do that, and also starting to demo a project if we have time tomorrow. That's all. If no question, then this concludes our discussion today. Thank you, guys. I will stop the recording.